In ancient times, trade moved by currents and seasons. But even with open seas, merchants still depended on a few narrow gates, maritime chokepoints. Control the gate, and you can tax, protect, or block the trade that feeds empires. First, geography forces the route. In ancient sailing, a narrow strait is a hard checkpoint. You can't avoid it without adding huge distance. So trade naturally funnels into one predictable gate. Second, currents and seasons decide timing. Ancient ships ran on nature's engine. At choke points, if the currents or weather turn against you, you wait. That waiting creates ports, warehouses, and trading towns. Third, navigation concentrates expertise. Narrow waters often mean reefs, shoals, and tricky channels. So pilots and local knowledge become essential, and whoever controls that expertise controls safe passage. Fourth, shorelines become checkpoints. A choke point is close to land, so states can build forts, levy tolls, and protect or threaten shipping. That's why choke points turn into political leverage. Finally, ships need shelter near the gate. Crews need water, repairs, and a safe place to wait for the right conditions. So choke points don't just channel ships, they create port cities right beside them. Ancient choke points cluster where geography forces ships to pass close to land. Then seasons, currents, and safe anchorages decide where ports grow. These gates became the natural checkpoints of ancient globalization. The Mediterranean world didn't sail straight to India, it had to pass one narrow gate first. This is Bab el-Mandeb, the Gate of Tears, where the Red Sea meets the Indian Ocean. Think of the Red Sea like a long corridor. If you want Egyptian, Roman, or Arabian ships to reach the monsoon routes of the Indian Ocean, everyone funnels to this southern exit. Here's the pinch point, the strait narrows between Arabia and Africa, split by Perim Island. Control the passage and you can tax, protect, or threaten the traffic moving between two worlds. Ancient trade wasn't just ships passing through, ships needed stopovers. Ports like Aden and the African coast provided water, repairs, pilots, and goods. With seasonal weather and tricky currents, Bab el-Mandeb wasn't optional. It was the checkpoint that connected the Red Sea trade to the Indian Ocean monsoon highway. The Persian Gulf wasn't an open ocean, it was a sealed trade basin. And to reach the wider world, ships had to pass one narrow exit. This is the Strait of Hormuz, the gate between the Gulf and the Indian Ocean. Think of the Persian Gulf like a long inland sea. Mesopotamia, Persia, and Arabia all trade through its ports. But there's only one way out, so everything funnels toward Hormuz. Here's the pinch point. Mountains and headlands squeeze the sea into a narrow channel. From the shore, you can watch, tax, and control traffic moving between the Gulf and the ocean routes beyond. Ancient trade wasn't just ships passing through, ships needed support. Gulf ports gathered pearls, dates, and goods from inland rivers. Then crews waited for the right wind to cross out to Oman and the Indian Ocean. Hormuz turned that timing into a checkpoint economy. Ports grow because the gate forces everyone to pass and pause. The spice trade didn't spread across open water at random. Between the Indian Ocean and China, geography narrows the sea into one main highway. This is the Strait of Malacca, the shortcut that links India, Southeast Asia, and the South China Sea. Look at the map. Sumatra and the Malay Peninsula form a long funnel. If you want to move between the Indian Ocean and the markets of Southeast Asia and China, this route is faster, safer, and easier than sailing the long way around. Here's the choke. Narrow waters, shifting shoals, and busy coastal traffic make navigation a skill. That's why pilots matter and why whoever controls key ports can influence the entire flow of trade. This is where choke points create cities. Ships don't just pass, they stop. They wait for seasonal weather, swap cargo, hire pilots, and resupply. That's why the Malacca Corridor grows into a chain of port hubs linking Indian Ocean goods to the South China Sea world. Grain, timber, slaves, and silver didn't move freely between seas. Between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, geography squeezes shipping into a two-gate system. This is the Hellespont-Bosporus Corridor, the only sea road in and out of the Black Sea. Look at the map. To narrow straits with a small inland sea between them. The Hellespont, today the Dardanelles, leads from the Aegean into the Sea of Marmara. Then the Bosporus funnels everything into the Black Sea, so all trade must pass these bottlenecks. Here's the first choke, the Hellespont. It's long, narrow, and current-driven, with limited room to maneuver under or sail. That's why controlling shore forts and anchor points here can stop an entire fleet or let it through. This is where choke points create capitals. Ships don't just pass. They queue, transfer cargo, and pay for safe passage. At Byzantium, later Constantinople, one harbor system can watch both directions and tax the flow. That's why the Bosporus becomes the key hinge between Mediterranean markets and Black Sea grain. The Mediterranean wasn't the whole world. To reach Atlantic tin, amber, and the ocean routes to the north and west, ships had to pass one final gate. This is the Strait of Gibraltar, the exit from the Mediterranean, the edge of the ancient map. Look how geography pinches the sea. Spain and Morocco nearly touch, leaving a narrow channel between two continents, and here the water moves. Atlantic tides and currents push through the gap, so timing matters as much as distance. Here's the choke itself, a short crossing, but crowded, windy, and current-driven. In ancient sailing, you don't just go, you wait for the right sailing window and fight the flow, especially when entering or leaving the Mediterranean. This gate shaped empires. To the ancients, these were the pillars of Hercules, the boundary between the inner sea and the open ocean. Control the shores and nearby harbors, and you can watch traffic, protect convoys, and tax the doorway between Mediterranean markets and Atlantic trade. Ancient trade wasn't just about distant ports. It was about the narrow places in between. Choke points turned geography into taxes, power, and sometimes war. In the age of sail, the shortest passages shaped the biggest histories.